All right, guys, here's part 2 of my last series of videos, and we are going to be concentrating on another big request, which is genetics. Genetics has to be one of the hardest topics to understand because I feel that some teachers just really take it overboard. Um, and again, teachers who are listening to this video, I completely understand that you are trying to make sure that you teach the curriculum, but we have to be fair about this being a living environment regions class, and you have to make sure that you get the absolute basics down packed before you move on to higher level stuff, because it can just confuse certain students who are trying to follow and understand something that's kind of complex. But guys, it's not complex at all. This is simple stuff. So let's talk about this chart over here. Stare at it. Look at it. You remember that episode in SpongeBob where SpongeBob had really rancid breath, like bad breath, and Patrick thought that they both thought that he was ugly, because that SpongeBob was ugly because people were running away from SpongeBob, but it was just that he had bad breath, and he was like, "Look at it. Look at it." You know, that's how I feel right now, basically. I love SpongeBob. So look at this. This is the messenger RNA codons and amino acids code chart. You never have to memorize it. You will always get this chart for the living environment. I think that if you try to go to nursing school or you're in nursing school, you actually do have to memorize this, which sucks, but some of you are pretty good in memorizing, and anyone can do it. It's been done millions of times before, people becoming nurse practitioners and nurses. So anyways, this is the process of protein synthesis. Protein synthesis is when your cells make proteins with the help of the nucleus and the ribosome. Remember that your nucleus has DNA molecules. Let me just get my highlighter here. Has the DNA molecule which controls cell activity. And for this particular cell activity is when your cells make proteins, okay? We have the other cell biochemical cell activity, which is cellular respiration, that make what? ATP in the mitochondria. You need the nucleus for that too, because it controls cell activity. All right, start from the top. Base your answer to the following question on the charts below and your knowledge of biology. So, a student was told that 3 different plant species are very closely related. She was provided with a short segment of the same portion of the DNA molecule that coded for enzyme X from each of the 3 species. We have species A, species B, species C. Now, let me just check if this question only wants us to fill out what's blank here. So let me just break things down for you. Protein synthesis starts off in the nucleus. The DNA cannot leave the nucleus, so it has to make a copy of itself called messenger RNA. Messenger RNA does not have a T. Let me take it back. DNA is made up of 3 parts. It's made of a phosphate, a sugar, and a base, the nitrogenous bases. The nitrogenous bases are ATCG, adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine. The messenger RNA does not have thymine. In place of thymine, it has uracil. So let's skip this one and go to one. This is just a very, very short version of this chart. This chart basically gives us the code of the messenger RNA, and it tells us what the amino acid would be. Because remember that amino acids, where do we have it here? Proteins are made up of amino acids. So at the end, when you get the DNA, you get the messenger RNA, and then you get the amino acids. This over here is going to be a complete protein. So let's get started. Now, we have our codon chart. We have our questions. We're going to do this one first, and then we're going to do the other one, because this one's better for just for tutoring reasons and understanding. Protein synthesis is when your cells make protein. It starts in the nucleus. In the nucleus, you have DNA. Here is the special DNA sequence of this person's or species DNA. DNA is double helix, but it unzipped and we only have one side to it. We need to convert, well, DNA has to make a copy of itself in order to leave the nucleus and make its way to the ribosome. So that copy is called the messenger RNA. The messenger RNA is also going to have A, C, G, but instead of a T, it's going to have a U, uracil. Okay? And just to remind you, in the DNA molecule, A is paired with T, and C is always paired with G. All right? So, let's get started here. Let me actually make this a little closer. This is TAC. So what would be the messenger RNA working one letter at a time? T always goes with A, right? So we have a T here. So A would be, always keep it in capital letters. Let me just move it over a bit. Let me see if I can find the, let me see. I can move it over a bit. There we go. Next one. If you have an A up here, you know how you would think you'd put a T, but no. There is no T in messenger RNA. There is a U. And then the next one is a G. Because T goes with A. We know that A goes with T, but in place of a T is a U. So whenever you see an A in the DNA side, in the messenger RNA, it should be a U. So as soon as you see the A, it should be a U. If you see a T, it should be an A. If you see a C, it should be a G. It should be a G. If you see a G, it should be a C. So let's go to the next one. TTA, well, that should be A, U. Next one. TCA. T goes with A, C goes with G, A goes with U. T, A, G. Okay. T goes with A. Let me move this. A goes with U. G goes with C. Because C and G are together. Okay. Now that we have our messenger RNA, the ribosome comes in and reads these messenger RNAs 3 nitrogenous bases at a time. Then it gives us the amino acid. So we have AUG. Now we have to go to our chart and find AUG, and then it'll give us our amino acid. Whenever you're asked for the amino acid, you got to use the chart. You got to use it. Okay? If you do these enough, you'll probably memorize it. So let's see. AUG, I found it here. The amino acid is MET. The messenger RNA here is AAU. Let's find AAU right here. It's the amino acid is ASN. These are abbreviations of long amino acid words that you don't need to know for the living environment. AGU, let's see, AGU is here, so the amino acid is SER. It's tempting to say SIR and MET, but it's really just saying the capital letters. AUC, let's see, AUC, and I skip AUC right here, and the amino acid is ILE. So now, just to let you know, this would be a 2-point question or a 1-point question. If you get any of these wrong by the slightest, the whole thing is wrong. You get no point. So let's go back up here. Now, when you get things like this, that you see blanks randomly, you have to pay attention at what they're asking for. So you look at the side, and this is where I say start from the top, work your way to the bottom. Look at every corner to make sure that you understand the question. So, all right, guys. So now we're going to have a question that only asks for parts of what's missing. So here, these are blanks that you have to fill out. And these particular blanks are messenger RNA. So if it's messenger RNA, you don't need the chart. You have your head to know that you have to convert, you have to find the pairs that go with the DNA strand to the messenger RNA strand. So C goes with G, A goes with U, T goes with A. Next one. G goes with C, T goes with A, G goes with C. CCA. C goes with G, A goes with U, A goes with U. Done. Point. Next. This one is asking for the amino acid. We need the chart. No problem. So here we have the whole chart, and it tells you step by step. Look at these nitrogenous bases: uracil, cytosine, adenine, guanine. This is the first base. You would find the second base. This you'll find the third base. Okay. You usually could find it with the first two. So it's asking, these blanks are asking for amino acid sequence. So here we go. We have the amino acid already. So the amino acid, the messenger RNA GUC, so the first one is G, second one is U, so it'll be somewhere here. GUC is Val. So the amino acid is VAL. Next one, the next messenger RNA is CAU. CAU, that's HIS. Very tempting to say his, but it's just the first three letters of the amino acid of the long word. GUC, GUC is right here, so the amino acid is VAL. Notice how I'm always doing it in caps. Also, same messenger RNA, so I could have just written save time and written, it's the same. Okay, so that's done. So we just went through a protein synthesis. Okay, now we are going to talk about evolution. And I chose evolution questions that I know you need to know how to answer. Either multiple choice, or the information from the multiple choice is gonna help us with a short response. We don't know how this test is gonna look. We have no idea. All we could do is wish for the best and have the tools necessary, the knowledge knowing what things mean, what things are, having the biological knowledge. Okay, so let's talk about evolution now, because we used to be, our ancestors were apes, monkeys, things like that, right? It's a theory. It's a theory. You don't have to believe it, but you just have to understand that evolution has scientific evidence that they want you to analyze, and this evidence is what proves evolution to be an actual theory. Don't worry about your beliefs. Just get the knowledge to pass the test, right? 10. The theory of evolution states that the theory of evolution is always the same, that species change over time. So let's use a highlighter for this. Species change over time and sometimes develop into new species. And the time is many, many, many years depending on the organism, because bacteria evolve faster than large multicellular organisms. So species change over time. That is the theory of evolution. and sometimes can develop into new species. Next, evolution can occur at different rates. However, for evolution to occur, there must be variation within species. The species has to have some kind of mutation, okay? So this is where mutations could be a positive thing. So mutations within species have to be present. Species have to be different in order for evolution to happen. Okay. When you see a question like this, that you have like a certain species and variations within species, notice how this is a particular bird that eats bugs, which is a carnivore, because if an animal eats another insect, it's a carnivore. Some students make that mistake of thinking that it's something else, but if you eat another organism and it's not a plant and it's a bug, then it's a carnivore. But anyways, start from the top always. The diagram below represents an important biological concept. Yum yum, dark beetles are my favorite, are our favorite. They can see the dark beetles. Notice how in the next generation you have less dark beetles and more of the light beetles. Remember, they only see the dark ones. Can I highlight this bird's eye? I cannot. The last generation, all of them had mutated and evolved into the beetles that the color that they can't see. This happened through the process of reproduction, and they passed on their genetic information to their next offspring, and they're now not going to go extinct, and they survived. Okay, so let's answer the question. The concept being represented is natural selection, guys. Survival of the fittest. So natural selection, to sum it up, is survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest. So the fittest ones here are the beige ones because they can't see it. Can't see, can't eat. Moving on. Picking up speed here. We have to talk about the importance of diversity and variation, which is caused by sexual reproduction. Male and female. Gene shuffling. Look at you and your siblings. If you don't have brothers and sisters, look at you and your parents. Are you a copy, a twin, a clone of your mom or your dad? No, you are a combination of the genes, and we created something new. If you do have siblings, you might look a lot like them, but you're not exactly like them. So gene shuffling happened. You guys are the same species. You're the same family, the same kin. But you have variety. You're different. Same goes for tigers and bears and dolphins and dogs and cats. There's variation within species, but they're all the same species. Now, let's look at this diagram here. Let's read from the top. Sorry, guys. That was my dad, being a dad, just coming in. But anyways, let's continue. So let's read. A population composed of tan snails, the tan snails right here, so this line represents the tan snails, and black snails, which represent the line with the dots, inhabits the same sandy beach. A nearby volcano erupted, and black lava particles washed down to the beach. The once tan beach was now black. The graph below shows the population of tan snails and black snails before and after the volcanic eruption. So they're both snails. They can both reproduce with each other, but they have variety. You have black snails and you have tan snails. So this is a variety within species. This is diversity. This is variation. This is gene shuffling. So here you have a graph of where that y-axis is the snail population size. So the higher up you go is a higher number of organisms. So down here will be 0. They didn't put numbers here, but let's say this is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 as you go higher. This is over time. So this is what happens over time. So let's just, before we even answer a question, let's just look at the graph. Graphs always tell you a story. This line is just saying when they were constant, and then it changed to, this is the point where they both changed. So there was a low number of black snails, and after time, it increased to a higher number of black snails. Let's go back in time. As you move towards time, you move forward, the tan snails went lower in number, so they started dying off, and then it became constant. So variation in snail color is an example of diversity. More diversity questions. Let me go back to my highlighter. Diversity. There's diversity here. And the reason why the tan snails died off is because they were not camouflaging anymore, because the beach turned black. The volcano erupted and turned the area black, so the black ones camouflaged. The predators could not attack the black ones. The tan ones were now visible because it's a black background and a tan snail. So they were vulnerable and visible to predators. Oh, look at these little spiders. Start from the top. Each row in the chart below represents a different population of the same species of insect. Which row shows the population with the greatest chance of survival in a changing environment? So one of the things that I want you to realize is that you have to look across. Some students think that this is the that they get confused as to what they choose. Do they choose this? Do they choose that? Where are they looking at? Up and down, left to right? So here we're looking at the rows. Which row? Row goes this way. Columns go this way. Okay? So, which row shows the population with the greatest chance of survival? In order for a species to survive, they have to have diversity. So which one of these rows have, an organism with the most diversity? Well, let's see. These two are the same. Let me get my pencil. These two are the same, and these two are different. These two are the same, and these two are different. These two are the same, and these two are different. So we have two different species here. I'm sorry, there are three different species here. One, 2, 3. Over here, we have three different species as well. Here we have three different species as well. Again, 1, 2, and 3. Here we have 4 different species. This is not the same as this. This is not the same as that. None of them are alike. So the one that's going to have the most survival is choice 1. That's going to have the most diversity. Ah, look at this again. The overall changes in the population of mice can be explained by natural selection, survival of the fittest, baby. These mice died off because they could be seen. I see you little guys because you're not camouflaging from the background. They start dying off, and then eventually you just get these guys, and they gotta find and go somewhere else to find food. Here's another question of diversity. Which statement is correct concerning the changes of survival for these species if there is a change in the environment? The answer is A. Species A has the best chance of survival because it is the most genetically diverse. This has more diversity than these are all the same, so they're going to die out. This is going to die out fast. They only have two mutated and two mutated. So these have the most differences. This one's more diverse. Species A has a better chance of survival. Next, again, survival of the fittest. This is a, put a star next to this number. Rewind this a couple of times. This is very important. This has to do with pesticides, animals surviving, organisms surviving pesticides, and antibiotics. So here we have some bugs that are attacking crops. They're being sprayed by pesticides. Okay, some of them die, but look, some of them survived. Sprayed pesticide again. Notice how the light-colored bugs are dying off, and the black-colored bugs are surviving the pesticide. The last spray, you still have a lot of bugs. What happened to these dark bugs that they're able to become resistant to the pesticide? This is what I want you to focus on when answering. Let's say this is a short answer question, and it's asking you, why was the black bug able to survive the pesticide? Because it mutated and became resistant. I'm going to emphasize this so much. Do not say that it got used to it. No, 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 no. Don't say that. Talk biological terms, because it mutated and it became resistant to, oh, we're not done, to the pesticide. Done. Moving on. Okay, so now the real question. Which concept is represented in the diagram? Survival of the fittest. Only the strongest survive. The strongest and most fit here being the black bugs, because they were able to survive the pesticide. Moving on. A photo of a polar bear in its environment is shown below. Okay, polar bear in the snow. One possible reason why polar bears might not be able to survive if the environment they live in changes is because they are already adapted to their current environment. If you change it, they will not have the characteristics that will help them be the survival of the fittest in that new environment. They have fur for the cold, blubber for the cold. They have a particular diet. They have a particular biochemistry in their enzymes that digest certain foods. You change them, they're goners. Moving on. Phylogenetic trees. More with evolution. Phylogenetic trees are trees, they're like family trees. And they tell you what species are closely related and which ones are not closely related. So here it says the evolutionary pathways of several species are represented in the diagram below. I'm going to break this down for you. So here we have what's called a phylogenetic tree. Let me change this to the type. This is called a phylogenetic tree. This helps with relationships between species. In terms of the lab, this is the relationships and biodiversity lab. When you had to find the common species for Botanicurus, which was Z, species Z. Okay? So anyways, I want to break down this phylogenetic tree. This is where it all started. This right here, K, from the past, back here is the past. many years ago. Old. When you move to the top, time passes, and this over here, are all the organisms alive today, alive right now, present time. These organisms evolved into different organisms. I'm going to add something here. Let me use actually my pen. I'm going to use a pen for this one. It's been a while. I'm a little nervous. This is not it. Comment. I don't even know. Oh, pencil. Let's say that there was another species that evolved here, and I'm going to purposely leave it here, and I'm going to call this a species Z. Notice how this species is not together and aligned with the present time. What happened to this species that it's not here in the present time? It became extinct. It became extinct. Where the heck is my text box? This species died out and became extinct, guys. Became extinct. If this Z was up here aligned with the present species, it would still be alive today. So that's one thing to remember. Another thing to realize is they're going to ask you things like, okay, you have, let me just take this off for you so that I can have a clean slate to work with. Okay, so let's say that they have G, F, and A. And the question is, which species is closely related to G, A or F? You're going to say F because they share a common ancestor, which is E. A is way too far to be that closely related to G. So F would be the one that's closer related to G because their common ancestor is closer. G and A have a very distant common ancestor, very far away. So that's another example. But let's answer the question. Which species was best adapted for survival in changing environmental conditions? This is different. This is saying which one survived over many, many, many years. Well, let's see. E. E survived many, many years because E was back in the day, time passed, it didn't even evolve, it stayed species E, and now it's in the present time. This species, natural selection, survival of the fittest, strong, fit, it was fine with predators, diseases didn't affect it, it survived all this time. So the best answer for the best adapted is E. Survived, here with us now. Okay, here we have something that's called geographic isolation, where you have a species that originated here and they flew off to different islands and become different species because they're separated by geography. They're separated by water, mountains, something like that. So I'm going to go, for time purposes, I'm going to go straight to the question. Which statement most accurately predicts the present day condition of these island hawks population? The hawks that landed on species B, on island B, have evolved more than those in island. That is the perfect answer. Because the hawks, this is their original nesting ground. This island is much closer to the nesting ground, and this island is very far away from the nesting ground, which makes these hawks hard. It makes it difficult for them to reproduce with island A and difficult to reproduce with them, and it's probably a different environment. So survival of the fittest, they have to adapt. Do they have to camouflage? Do they have to change their diet? They become a different species over time, which is evolution. Next. Here we have The same situation with the pesticide and the bugs, but now with antibiotics and bacteria. I am going to put a huge star, huge. You're definitely going to have a question based off of this. So here we have bacteria, right? And it's being treated by antibiotic. Antibiotics kill bacteria. So what they're doing is, here we have antibiotics, and here's one dark little guy here. Now, it's not that you have to concentrate about the color. The color is indicating that something is different about that bacteria. What's different about this bacteria? Well, that is genetically different. It has a DNA mutation. Yeah, let's just not even try. Let's just not. This cute little guy has a DNA mutation that makes it different from all the other bacteria cells here. After time, it starts killing them off, but look, these start reproducing more of themselves, meaning that this one bacteria didn't die from the antibiotic at all. It was just one. So then it grew more. It went into mitotic division, cell division. 1 became 2. Okay? 2, okay, they kind of went off on numbers here. But these, or maybe not. This is the original. These okay, no, this is correct. So something special happened to these bacteria cells. Back to how you need to answer these questions. They became resistant to the antibiotic. If you say it got used to it, just welcome the 0 into your life for that question. Accept the loss. They became resistant to the antibiotic because, if you want to get fancy, because of a DNA mutation. Moving on. Which statement best, let me get the highlighter. Which statement would best explain the presence of bacteria on day 4? D. Some of the bacteria population was resistant to this antibiotic because of DNA mutation. You know, a level up. You know, a level up. Next question. The diagram of evolutionary pathways of various animal species is shown below. Phylogenetic trees. Which set of species are living in the present time? Only B and C. This is a line of present day. D, E, and F went what? If they're not up here, what happened to them? They became extinct. Moving on. 23. The diagrams below show embryos of 3 different vertebrae. Okay, so this is called embryology. And scientists, to prove that evolution is true and to prove that we came from a common ancestor, these are one of the features that they look at. They look at how animals look when they're embryos, when they're in the womb, in the uterus of the female. And they look at the characteristics and similarities. And yes, us humans, I don't know which one's which, but us humans, we used to look just like this. So you, let's say you're 15 years old, 15 years ago and 8 months ago, you looked like this, and you had a tail, and so did a chicken embryo, and so did a dolphin embryo. And you know, scientists theorize that we must have a common ancestor if we look so similar when we're embryos. Let's read the question. According to one theory, similarities in these embryos suggest common ancestry. As these embryos mature, they were most likely, so when they grow though, the human's going to start looking like a human, the chicken's going to start looking like a chicken, and the dolphin's going to start looking like a dolphin. So the best answer is to develop the distinctive characteristics of their species. This is also called differentiation of the cells. the cells start producing the proteins that the DNA is telling it to do. And our proteins are very different from the proteins that are developed in other animals. This is why chicken looks like a chicken and we look like a human. The chickens have a specific DNA recipe to make those proteins to make it look like a chicken. We make special proteins that make us look like humans and make enzymes and look fabulous. We're very complex. This is called biochemical comparison. You already know DNA sequencing. This is the DNA strand. So this is comparing DNA strands. Again, this question is probably asking about which species is closely related to each other. So let's see. Start from the top. A researcher recently discovered a new species of bacteria in the body of a tube worm living near a hydrothermal vent. He compared the DNA of this new bacteria species to the DNA of 4 other species of bacteria. The DNA sequences came from the same part of the bacterial chromosomes of all 4 species. Unknown species of bacteria. 4 of the known species of bacteria. According to these data, the unknown bacterial species is most closely related to who? So, let me get my highlighter. They want to know which, oh, it doesn't highlight. They want to know, also, let me get my pen. Pen, where are you? Oh, this is so annoying. Comment. Pencil. They want to know which one is related, closely related to the unknown species. Is it species 1, species 2, 3, or 4? This is important because if you know that this unknown bacteria is similar to another bacteria, you will know how to kill it. You know, because if it works for one, it's going to work for the other if their DNA is similar. Because then that means that the pesticide or the antibiotic that you use, the poison that you use to kill it, will work. Okay, one at a time. One at a time. You're looking at the DNA sequencing. Unknown species has ACT. This one's no good. Yep. This one's no good. Yep. So these check out as similar. Okay, because we now know that. No, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Unknown species, next DNA sequence, GCA. Okay, GCA, nope. GCA. This one has a lot in common with the others. Last one, CCC. This is not CCC, this is not CCC, this is not CCC, and this is not CCC. So let's see. Which one had the most common DNA sequence? So species 1 had only one similar to the unknown species. So this one had only one. Species 2 had only one. Species 3 had only one. Look at this. Species 4 had 2 similar DNA sequences. The unknown species is closely related to species 4 because it has 2 DNA sequences similar. Moving on. The chart below contains characteristics that can be used to classify organisms A, B, and C. Okay, here goes the next part of the student requests that I saw in the comments. Autotrophs, heterotrophs, single-celled, multicellular. Okay, so state one reason why organism A and organism C might be placed into 2 different classification groups, even though they are both single-celled. Okay, let me get my text. So, organism A. Organism A is single-celled. Wait, let's put organism A. Okay, bullet point is single-celled. It's autotroph. Oh, it's autotroph. You should know this by now. If you saw my previous videos, you know what an autotroph means. It photosynthesizes. If it photosynthesizes, that means that it's either a plant or a bacteria. Next, it's missing nuclear membrane. Absent, no nuclear membrane means that this is probably some kind of bacteria or one-celled organism, because plants have organelles and they have a nucleus and a nuclear membrane. And it does not it does have a ribosome. Ribosome check. So it makes proteins. Okay, this organism A is definitely a bacteria or a paramecium or just a one-celled organism, because it's missing organelles. Plant cells have organelles. It has the nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum, chloroplast, mitochondria, vacuole. Okay, so now let's talk about organism C. Organism C. Bullet point. Let's see. It's single-celled, okay, but it's heterotrophic, meaning heterotrophs get their source of food. So this is probably an amoeba, or it's just a one-celled organism that engulfs other living microscopic organisms, because if it's heterotrophic, that means it gets its food. It's eating other organisms. We're heterotrophs. Okay, dogs are heterotrophs, cats are heterotrophs, fish are heterotrophs. We don't photosynthesize. We get our food by eating other organisms. Types of heterotrophs. This is worth typing. Types of heterotrophs. Carnivores. Carnivores only, eat meat only. This is including insects. That's a carnivore. 2, herbivores. Eat only plants. Omnivores. That's us. We eat plants and animals, both. 4, detrivores. Eat decomposing dead organisms. This is for circle of life again. Anyways, nuclear membrane is absent. I'm not going to type this, and it does make proteins as well. The question is, say one reason why organism A and organism C might be placed into 2 different classification groups, even though they are both single-celled, because they eat and consume different things. This is an autotroph, okay? Autotrophs make their own food. They make their own food through the process of photosynthesis or chemosynthesis. Organism C is a heterotroph. It engulfs and eats other organisms smaller than itself. So sorry for all the misspelled words, but they have different diets. They eat different things, so different classification. Moving on. Okay, here we have ecology, food. This is a food web. I want you to understand something very important. The arrows are the way energy is flowing. So, for example, the arrows are saying what eats what consumes what, but it's a little tricky with the flow of the arrows. So let's do an animal at a time, an organism at a time. Let's start with the snake. Look at the arrows that are pointing to the snake. Let me just put a note here. the arrow, let's do the snake first. And let me move this out the way. Snake. Look at the arrows pointing toward the snake. That is what the snake eats. So what does the snake eat? How many arrows are pointing to it? Just one. Where's the arrow coming from? The mouse. So the snake eats the mouse. Let's do the next organism, a hawk. Look at the arrows pointing to it. It has one arrow pointing to it. The hawk eats also the mouse. Next animal, owl. Owl. One arrow pointing to it. The owl also eats the mouse. What's happening here? The snake, hawk, and owl are competing for the same food, same prey. Okay, next. Let's look at the frog. How many arrows is pointing to the frog? Just one. What does the frog eat? It eats a cricket. Let me go back here. The hawk eats a mouse. What is it? What kind of heterotroph is it? It's a carnivore. It eats a mouse. Owl's a carnivore. Snake is a carnivore. Frog is a carnivore. A cricket is another organism that's not a plant, so it's a carnivore. Let's look at the cricket. How many arrows are pointing to the cricket? One. Where's it coming from? The grass. Crickets eat grass. It is an herbivore. Eats herbs, grass. Next, let's look at the, let's see. Oh man. Let's look at the bacteria. How many arrows is pointing to the bacteria? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All of the organisms are being consumed. The bacteria consume all of these living things, but it's very special. The bacteria act as a decomposer. So when an organism dies, bacteria grows and decomposes, bringing back the last bit of energy into the earth, starting the circle of life again. Let's answer the question. All of this was for you to understand this diagram, because this diagram, this food web, can be asked a million different ways. What is a hawk? A carnivore. What's a mouse? The mouse the mouse eats grass. It's an herbivore. Can the snake, hawk, and owl live in the same niche, in the same environment? Yeah, but they're going to be competing for the same prey. Okay, which one is the decomposer? The bacteria. It's so many different questions. Where do trees get its energy? From the sun. Which one is an autotroph? The tree, because a tree is a plant. Plants photosynthesize. That's autotrophs. Oh, goodness gracious. But guess what? You are ready. You are so ready to take this exam after watching all my videos. You're gonna open up that exam and you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, what the heck have I been doing all year? I am going to pass this thing more than a 65 because you deserve it. Anyways, that's just my little motivation moment. Let's answer the question. What is an appropriate title for this diagram? Energy flow in the community. Fine. I did a lot of work here. I don't even care about this question right now. Next. Over a period of time, an abandoned field develops into a forest by a series of events known as, here we have ecological succession. I chose two different types of multiple choice questions because you might have one with the picture or without a picture. I want you to take a look at this picture, and I'm actually going to put a star next to it. Comment and pencils. Star. Whenever you see a picture of a bedrock, and then over time it develops into this lush, beautiful forest, this is called ecological succession. You start with a bedrock, nothing is here, it's barren. But then life starts happening. Birds from distant lands fly over to this rocky area and start pooping. What's in bird poop? If you didn't know, birds eat seeds. So sometimes they don't digest the seed, and then the seed actually ends up in their poop full and ready to germinate. Germinate meaning grow and develop, grow, and then they poop on the rocks, and the rocks probably have nitrogen in it still, and you know, nutrients and minerals. And I'm sorry, just reading some comments from you guys. You're very, very welcome. This is my life and passion. I love science. I love teaching. And you guys deserve to pass. So anyways, the seeds, they make it somehow, if it's through dispersion, wind, weather, you know, tornadoes, hurricanes, bird poop, whatever the case may be, the seeds make it here, and after many years, you get a lush forest. This is called ecological succession, or just succession. Over a period of time, an abandoned field, develops into a forest, ecological succession. That is it. That's all you need to know. Hello. Next. Okay, now we're going to talk about invasive species. Let's talk about invasive species real quick. Invasive species is when people become very selfish, like celebrities and rich people, and they get exotic animals for their house as pets. Have you heard this new thing of people having foxes and lions and monkeys and certain types of fish for their aquarium? Guess what some of these brilliant human beings do? This is also considered human impact on the ecosystem. Besides poaching, when we kill animals for their tusks and ivory and fur and all this and that, that's poaching. Sometimes we get these exotic animals. This is called human impact on the ecosystem. Human impact on the ecosystem. So we have negatively impacted the ecosystem, our Earth, by bringing in invasive species. This is when humans take wild animals from a different part of the world and release them back into the wild, because they probably couldn't handle the animal anymore and didn't want the animal anymore, into another foreign area. How does this affect? There's a lot of cons. The invasive species can become a new predator. It can wipe out current species because it's overpopulating. And the area has reached its carrying capacity. Carrying capacity is the amount of resources available in an area for a certain number of living things. For example, in New York, we have about 8 million people. We're probably maxed out with the amount of food, shelter that we have, and clean water, these natural resources that we have for New Yorkers right now. If you throw in another 10 million people, we've reached our carrying capacity. We're not going to be able to sustain that much humans in New York City. So people are going to start dying. And then, so It fluctuates. Okay? Oh, this is annoying me. I don't want to misspell anymore. So the new predators would wipe out other species. They'll overpopulate. They'll overproduce. They could bring in a disease. They could bring in a disease. They could bring in one of the 4 pathogens, which is a virus, or a bacterial disease, or a fungal disease, or a parasite. Introducing these diseases to these new animals, that's invasive. Let's answer the question. Which statement best describes the effect of water flea on the lake? It will feed on organisms that are important to other species. That's the best answer. Okay. Wasn't planning on a graph. Oh, but I wanted it for this question. Short response. State one reason why invasive insect species are a major problem for agriculture. An invasive insect that comes through agriculture is farms. Planting corn, cucumbers, lettuce, strawberries, plantains, your crops. You bring in an insect, that insect could wipe out that crop. It could bring in a fungus, it could bring in a virus, it could bring in a disease. It can overpopulate and eat your crops, and then you'll just have bugs all over your lettuce or corn. It could bring parasites, and you can have worms in your corn because some brilliant person wanted to bring a foreign insect or brought it mistakenly because it brought it, like they got an exotic plant and they brought it in for the crops, but they didn't know that there was a bug hanging out inside of that plant. Have you ever opened up a fruit or vegetable and you found a little bug or a dead bug in there? Super gross, but super cool at the same time. Guys, I'm going to pause the video. I'm seeing an hour and 2 minutes. Crap, this is going to take a long time to upload. Oh well, some of you are probably not going to sleep anytime soon. I'm going to upload one more video because it's worth it. Before we know it, the test is over and you can sleep all week. But then you have to take your math regents or any other regents. Good luck, good luck, good luck, good luck, good luck. I'm going to post one more video.